I'm here today driving the 2018 Renault Clio. Now this is my daily driver, and so I thought I'd do a little review. Here we go. To see, it's a bit of an old car now, 2018. Oh God, that was six years ago now? But I've been driving this car for about a year. I like it. We'll get into some specs. I don't know a whole lot about it, but we can get into some stuff that I know. So this car is, well, if you want to buy one, which you can decide after the end of this review, it's going to set you back around 6 to 10 grand, just under 10 grand, which, to be honest, oh, that's bright, is pretty good. And they have got an upgraded sports package, which is not this car, which that's going to be your top end, sort of 10 grand. Obviously these are all used because it's a 2018 one. Do you know what? It's an old car. It's a pretty good, it's my mum's car. I think she's had it for about, it could have been since 2018, to be honest. 2018-19 I think she got it, sort of that time. It's a good car. To me, first of all, what I would say is this car isn't crazy old. So the brakes on it, I don't know if they're worn. I didn't drive the car when it was new, but for me the brakes, they're just spongy. They're not very good. If I was going to buy this, I would probably change some stuff. I would buy the car to upgrade it. But to be honest, if you're just a daily driver, you need a commute car, this is pretty good. It's compact, it's small, it's a 5-seater, which is nice, you know, if you've got kids. It's all right. It's a small car, as I said, get over. Some people can't drive. Yeah, it's small, compact. It's a manual. I'm not the biggest fan of manuals, I'll be honest. Like, manuals are fun if you're driving a car, like if you're driving a nice car, right? If you're driving a car, it really is bright today. If you're driving something like a vintage Ferrari or whatever, or a track car, then, you know, maybe if I was driving something that's a bit newer on a track car, I'd go with a sequential gearbox. But that's just me personally. I know some people do like the classic gearboxes, but I think this is not a racing car, right? Let's not get this confused. This is, I mean, I guess it could be a boy racer car, but really the heart of it is just a sort of commuter car. That's what this is. It's a commuter car. It's a nice car, but at the end of the day, it's a commuter car. You're not going to get anything special out of it. You know, you put your foot down, it doesn't really go anywhere, which, to be honest, I might go left here, which, to be honest, is a shame. It's not quite living up to the performance that I would expect for something that looks like this, right? You know, I would expect boy racer, sort of a bit of pace. Obviously, I'm guessing potentially they knew that that's what this car was going to attract, you know, new drivers, boy racers, people who are going to want to go fast and hard and not really, you know, have a thought about other people on the road. So maybe that's why they made this so slow. I'm not sure, but there's just no go. You know, you put your foot down. Also, another thing is, it's a 5-gear, which in my opinion is utterly useless. Why they've made it a 5-speed, I don't know why it's a 5-gear, to be honest. Which way do you go? Yeah, I don't really know why they made it 5 gears, because another thing is, this doesn't really get up to speed very well. You know, this car sort of doesn't really do much well, I will say, except it looks very nice, which, do you know what, is fair. But it just again, performance is not there. It lacks a bit. It's just a bit sad, really. And it's not a bad car, you know. It's going to be an upgrade from a lot of cars. But, you know, would I rather drive this, spend, you know, in today's market, realistically on this, you're probably looking at 6-7 grand. Would I rather spend 6-7 grand on this, or 6-7 grand on maybe even an old school BMW that's, you know, a bit messed up, but it's a bit of a project car that you can sort of put some money into and you know, build up. One thing I would say, you wait there. One thing I would say about this car, oh, we're in a bloody racetrack here. Yeah, one thing I would say about this car is it's very reliable. I will say that. I think we've had the car for about 4 years, maybe honestly a bit longer. And in that time, it's only been to the mechanics, well, only a few. I think it had some suspension issues. It's also just this braking, that it doesn't really stop. Do you know what I mean? I think I'm gonna nip in here actually. Yeah, it doesn't stop like the way that a car should stop. Get off my arse. Well, that was bumpy. Yeah, it doesn't stop the way a car should stop. Like if I stopped here, that's my normal braking. That's not foot to the floor braking, but that's how I would put pressure on the brakes normally. It just hasn't got that bite. It's the same with the biting point on the clutch. The biting point on the clutch is so high that you barely need to put your foot on the clutch to change gears, and the brake is so low that it feels like nothing's happening. Because normally you'd put steady pressure on the brake the whole way through and sort of you know, coast it to a stop, unless obviously, you know, emergency stop or whatever. But normally you'd sort of just let it coast through to a stop. You know, you'd slowly apply the pressure. You can't do that in this car. I don't know if this is this car specifically. Obviously we've used it for a few years, or it's just that case with Renault Clios, that it doesn't stop until you hit a certain point. It's almost like the biting point in a clutch. You know, the way that a clutch, well, I'm not saying it should be, because obviously every car is different with their clutch, but having such a high clutch in this and such low braking is really weird. It just doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel like the car that I would trust. You know, for anything for motorway driving, it barely gets up to speed. It's not fast, it's not got performance. You put your foot down, nothing happens. It's just sort of a car that it just sort of doesn't do much. It looks good, but apart from that, it doesn't really do much. In whether that's performance or whether that's, you know, whatever, it just, whatever it's doing, it doesn't really do it well, is what I would say for this car. But that is a stop to our journey. If you are looking for a car that is cheap, I say cheap, 6 grand, you're looking at a used one of this, that's fairly expensive, but it's not a bad car. I've probably made in this review it sound like a terrible car. It's not. It's a good car. I just think for 6 grand, the thing feels like it's on skates the whole time. This is a sort of, maybe a car, depends on how much money you have, obviously. Maybe this is a car that you get when you pass straight away your driving test, or maybe this is a second or third car. You know, if you don't want something with too much power because you don't feel confident, that's fine. That's what this car is. It's small, it's compact. It just sort of feels like a car that doesn't do anything particularly well. Again, if you don't want performance, that's fine. that's cool. And this car's probably for you. It's small, again, so you can get in tight spaces, but it's also a bit nicer to maneuver. You know, if you're not a confident driver and you don't want the power, trying to maneuver something like an SUV, power to get you to where you want to go, but not much more. And that's cool. So I think this car is for people that are commuters, maybe don't drive every day, so they don't need a perfectly car that does everything very well, is a bit scared of the power. Maybe it's a first or maybe a second car, because it, for what it is, it's too expensive in my opinion. It's a nice car, but I mean, 6 grand up to 10 grand if you get the sports package. But then saying that, that's me. You know, I would go for an old school, I would get, you know, I'd buy an old school vintage car over this, but that's me. If you want a car, you're new to driving or you're scared of the power a bit, you know, you want to feel safe in a car, it's a nice car. It does feel a bit janky at times, but it's a nice car. So that's what I would say, that's what I would get. You know, if you got a bit of money, it's your first car, second car, and you want a manual. That's the other thing, the manual v auto debate. It shifts into gears slightly awkwardly, like going into second, sometimes I've missed it quite a few times actually. It's not perfect, but if you want a car with not a lot of power that feels safe, feels good, that you can drive as a starter car, this is what I would put my money on over a Fiesta. Some people are going to want to go tiny, you know, like a KA, a Fiat. That's cool, and that's got its own things in it. If you want sort of a smaller, medium-sized car, this really is a small car, but in comparison to a Fiat, it's, you know, a sort of medium car. But if you want a smallish car, for this price, you're not going to get much better. Again, it is used. I don't know, I think the new ones are about 12, 15, 20 grand, something like that. I probably wouldn't go for them. I've never tested it, so I can't be sure, but I probably wouldn't. But I would say this car, for a specific type of person, it's perfect. If you're a boy racer, it's pretty good. If you want to do it up, it's a fairly expensive car if you want to do it up. You know, I'd try and keep it under 2.5, under 2 grand, something like that, if you want to do a car up, because that can get really expensive. But if you've got the money, it's pretty perfect. And if you can get one with a sports mode, I think it's actually race mode it's called. I'm looking, so you've got, so there's a upgraded version on here, because I can see it on the dash, it just isn't unlocked. So you've got a sport mode and a race mode. So I don't know if that then gives you the power. So maybe if you wanted a bit more power, you go with that option, get the power from it. But it's a solid car. You know, it's got a nice, you know, stereo, it's got sound. The speakers are a bit shit. I mean, what can you expect? But again, if you're going to do up a car, wax and Bose speakers in it, whatever, it's not a big deal. It's only when you're listening to music really loud that it sort of gets a bit unbearable. But if you're listening to it at a normal volume, it's all right. It's a perfect car. Again, just someone that wants a nice car. They maybe have a little bit more money to spend. Not enough for sort of a luxury, you know, even like a Golf, you know, looking 20 to 25 grand for like a Golf that's really nice, you know, heated steering wheels, comfortable bucket seats, whatever. Automatic, that's another debate. But if you're not looking for that, but you're looking for something good, this is probably your option. Anyway, I've been Jack Waldron. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you later.